I was in it too, so I guess we're part of the problem.
Yeah. Yeah, but I was only playing golf. What the heck?
36. I think
All right. Hi, everyone. We're going to wait just a second more to get started to let folks filter in, and then we'll begin our meeting.
I was in the waiting room for like 5 minutes and I'm going, are they going to let me in? Are they going to let me in? Oh, they're probably taking care of some last minute stuff before they let the public in.
we were just talking about traffic.
No traffic for this meeting.
No, that is the good thing.
All very convenient.
Are you guys thinking about meeting in person again? Or are you going to stay online or what?
We are thinking about it, and I think Jonathan will have some updates once the meeting starts on that.
Yeah.
You mean this long hair guy up in the corner?
That's me.
You let your employees look like that? I can't believe it.
All right. So I'm going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. This is a regular meeting of the Isla Vista Community Services District. I'd like to announce the meeting is being recorded. And Jonathan, can you call the roll?
Yeah. Director Brandt.
Here.
Director Flaherty.
Here.
Director Bertrand. Here, right? I think he's muted. Director Freeman.
Here.
Director Aguilar.
Here.
Director Geis.
Here.
Director Deschler. I don't think he's here yet.
Yes, I'm here. Sorry I was on mute.
No worries. Great to have you, Ethan. Okay, before we begin, we would like to acknowledge the Chumash people, who are the traditional custodians of this land. We pay our respects to the Chumash elders, past, present, and future, who call this place Annisquayo, the land that Isla Vista sits upon, their home. We are proud to continue their tradition of coming together and growing as a community. We thank the Chumash community for their stewardship and support, and we look forward to strengthening our ties as we continue our relationship of mutual respect and understanding. So with that, we'll move to the consent agenda. Do any directors have items that they wish to pull? And if not, I will entertain a motion.
I'll move to approve the consent agenda.
Made by Geis. Is there a second?
I will second.
Okay. Is there any public comment on the motion? All right, seeing none, we'll bring it back to the board and we'll call the question to a vote.
All right. Director Brandt.
Yes.
Flaherty.
Yes.
Bertrand.
Yes.
Geis.
Yes.
Aguilar.
Yes.
Freeman.
Yes.
All right, motion passes. So now we're going to move to the public comment period. So this is the time for any member of the public to speak on matters that are not on today's agenda. We have a packed agenda, and if you're here for one of those items, we will take public comment during those items. Are there any requests to speak today? All right, I'm not seeing any hands. So with that, we'll close the public comment period and we'll move on to our first item on our agenda today, the presentation on the emergency shelter in Isla Vista.
Great, thank you. I'm gonna pass it over to Lucille Boss and allow her to share her screen, which you should be able to now.
Thank you. Can everybody see the screen all right? Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, well, thank you so much to the full IVCSD board this evening for welcoming us. My name is Lucille Boss. I'm a senior housing program specialist with the County of Santa Barbara, and I'm joined tonight by Sylvia Bernard, the executive director of Good Samaritan Shelter, and Kirsten Cahoon, the director of homeless services for Good Samaritan. You'll be hearing from them in just a couple of minutes. But first, thank you again for having us back to this time to talk about emergency shelter in Isla Vista. So I'm doing a grand reveal, but unfortunately it's just on a screen. But we're really excited to bring what will be known as Hedges House of Hope to Isla Vista. So we were really grateful to have permission from the family to establish this emergency shelter in Father John's name. So really delighted to announce that. But tonight we'll be presenting information about the new emergency shelter project in Isla Vista. So the essential who, what, when, where, why, and how, starting with the need for emergency shelter in Isla Vista, and then getting into the details of the solution, which is a 50-bed shelter with housing and housing navigation services, including the timeline, funding, operations, clients to be served, and how you can help. So first, I'll turn it over to Kirsten to talk a little bit more about the need for emergency shelter in Isla Vista, and specifically the success of the emergency pallet shelters.
Thanks, Lucille. Good evening. I'm Kirsten Cahoon, Director of Homeless Services for Good Samaritan, and I have had the honor of running the Isla Vista pop-up shelter for the last 6 months, and it's really been an incredible journey. I can't believe it's been 6 months already, and we're putting this project to an end this week. Some of the outcomes of the shelter, it was a very successful project, and thank you for everyone in Isla Vista for being great partners on this project. And the community was just a really wonderful community to work with. Getting to work with UC Santa Barbara students on this project that were our staff was just really, really wonderful. And I think they gained a lot of great experience from this project. So we served 39 people total since we opened in December. We had 27 successful exits, so 22 of them went into permanent housing. We reunified one client with family, 2 went to residential treatment, and 2 went into our Safe House program in Santa Maria, which is our human trafficking safe house. 100% of our clients became document ready with us and received medical assessments. That was a huge feat. Most of these clients didn't have IDs or social security cards or hadn't had any of those items in a long time. So it's really great that they all have these documents now. We created binders for each one of them with all of their important documents in them. So moving forward, we're hoping they can keep it all together and organized. 100% of our clients were connected to mainstream benefits, things like health insurance, food stamps. We worked with a lot of them on getting SDI started, or SSI, and unemployment benefits, etc. We had 3 of them secured employment, 10 received medically assisted treatment or outpatient treatment, and that's still ongoing for these clients. We connected 3 veterans to services, which means they're connected with our supportive services for veteran families. And as of today, we housed all 3 of the veterans into permanent housing, which was wonderful. 5 of them received respite care there at the pallets after surgery. We had several clients that had medical needs that were going unmet because they were living in encampments and it wasn't a safe space for them to come back to after a surgery. So it was really great that we were able to ensure that everyone's medical needs were being taken care of. 2 of them received dentures, which was a huge confidence builder for these clients, and 12, which is a huge number, received mainstream vouchers, which means they now have Section 8 vouchers ongoing for the rest of their lives, possibly, if they end up needing them. But it was just really wonderful to make some great relationships with landlords and things like that, and to see these folks that have just been truly chronically homeless from when we started outreaching to them in Anascoyo Park back in September, October of last year, and to see them move into housing now has just been extremely heartwarming. So thank you guys so much for the opportunity to be able to do this right there in your community. It was really wonderful.
Thank you. We're really grateful, especially to IVCSD, for the use of the building and the space, and want to return it to you in good condition. So looking forward to next week. But as you all know, there is still an ongoing need for emergency shelter in Isla Vista. It's a high priority in the unincorporated area of the county, with approximately 80 persons who are unhoused and in need of shelter. There are unsafe conditions for persons who remain unsheltered, and that includes the risk of fire, impacts on public recreation areas and the environment, safety of the greater Isla Vista community and visitors, and concern for the health and safety of those who are experiencing homelessness. These concerns have been identified through an increase in calls for law enforcement service, the need for sanitation services and removal of biohazard, and the deterioration of parks due to work delays or cancellations caused by encampment activity over the past year. And there is, of course, a need for a contracted service provider to coordinate and operate emergency shelter and temporary housing in or near the Isla Vista area. So that brings us again to today. So Good Samaritan Shelter will operate a 50-bed shelter to address homelessness named Hedges House of Hope in Isla Vista. A bit of detail about the site before I turn it over to Sylvia. The site is a 20-room dorm style building, which includes up to 60 bed areas, multiple bathrooms, a large kitchen, and a dining area. And the county is entering into a lease with an option to purchase the site from the owner. Funding is provided by state and federal sources, and the use of the site for a homeless shelter is consistent with current entitlements and permits issued by the County Planning and Development Department. County officials in Good Samaritan Shelter I will continue presenting to different community meetings, starting with this one. And the goal of the facility is to provide a secure and safe temporary housing option for individuals experiencing homelessness, where they can stabilize their lives through provision of wraparound on-site care to help them transition into permanent housing. A brief overview of the timeline. On June 15th, the County Board of Supervisors approved the lease and for the physical site and a subrecipient agreement with Good Samaritan Shelter. Right now, construction is underway to ensure that the building and space is ADA compliant. And starting on July 1, operations will begin. And some funding details. I mentioned earlier that there are a number of different sources, state and federal specifically. So the lease was the Homeless Housing Assistance and Prevention Program Navigation Center funds. And these funds come from specifically a state program, and the county had dedicated it to a navigation center. A potential purchase, if the county chooses to take that option, might be the American Rescue Plan Act. For ADA compliance, we also had funds from HHAP, or the Homeless Housing Assistance and Prevention Program. And for operations, for the emergency shelter, using the Emergency Solutions, or ESG, and CARES and coronavirus grant, as well as HHAP funds. So now I'll turn it over to Sylvia to talk a bit more about Good Samaritan Shelter and operations.
So thank you so much for the opportunity to discuss the new project. We're really excited to be selected by the county as the provider. We were honored to be the first ones to do the pallet shelters within the county, and just so grateful for our partnership with your organization to allow us to use the space to do that. So as promised, we are moving out. It's crazy week this week and next week, as you can imagine, really busy for us. Kirsten is heading it up down there, but we're planning on the Hedges House of Hope to have the same staffing structures we have in all of our programs. We will have 24-hour staffing of shelter staff. We also will have 2 full-time case managers, a program manager, and then we also will have security in the evening. That is also going to be funded by the county. And so the goal is really to have a structured program. We are a housing first model, so individuals can come to us as they are, but within our program, they cannot have drugs and alcohol on their persons or on our site. And we work to be able to get them connected to services. So behavioral wellness will be doing outreach there as they have done at the current site. We actually are the largest drug and alcohol treatment provider within the county. And so we also run the Sobering Center in Santa Barbara. So we always use that as a resource if we need to stabilize individuals at the Credo 47 Stabilization Center. We also have rapid rehousing funding. So that staffing will be located there to provide rapid rehousing support and case management as they move into permanent housing. And we also will have the public health nurse. She's going to have an office there that she can utilize to be able to visit our residents as well. So our staffing model is strong to make sure that we are stable and we have 24-hour staffing and we provide the support services our clients need. But it's also in partnership with our agencies that our partner agencies that really are the experts in other fields. And so we bring them in, and it's really a communal approach from that perspective. Health and safety is really important. I'm really proud to say that Good Samaritan was the leader really on homeless services in COVID. We were the only agency that expanded shelter beds throughout this process. Isla Vista was one, Santa Maria High was another. And we also opened a stabilization center in Santa Maria during this process while also maintaining our own regular operation. So as you may or may not know, we are an agency that has over 500 beds of emergency shelter throughout the county at this point. We also have over 30 locations, and really have a lot of support systems. And I fondly call it, our own continuum of care, where you can come in the door at the stabilization center or have outreach and an encampment and get all the way to permanent housing within our organization and get all the support services in between. So as I mentioned, we do a lot of case management. We also do housing navigation services. We have a landlord incentive program right now to work with landlords and get them signed up. Our goal is really that we want to stabilize our clients and offer them a safe place to be able to get emergency shelter and the support services they need. But we also want to make sure that they're prepared to be a good tenant and that we have happy landlords that want to continue to lease to our clients. And so our goal is always to be able to figure out housing opportunities, but make sure that our clients are going to be stable enough to continue. So we provide that ongoing case management through rapid rehousing for up to 2 years. So we're just super grateful to have this opportunity. I think that our staff, we hired a lot of our staff in the Isla Vista Pallet Shelter Project from the local community. A lot of them graduated, so we were so bummed to see them go. But we have quite a few that are going to stay on with us, and we're going to be recruiting for more staff for this project. But I feel like our staff really did a great job of getting to know the community and being a part of Isla Vista, and Isla Vista really opened their arms to our staff. So we really appreciated that, and our clients. So that is all I have to present, and I know at the end Lucille is going to finish it up, but if anyone has any questions, I'm definitely here to answer them.
Would you be willing to talk a little bit more about the clients who will be served as well?
Yes, so the priority for this project is going to be from the Isla Vista community, those that are without homes, and so we will definitely serve those that are unsheltered. We also will only take from referrals from partner agencies at this point. So partner agencies would actually include Isla Vista Community Services District. It would include Isla Vista Recreation and Park District, the IV Foot Patrol, Behavioral Wellness, Public Health, the Stabilization Center, the CSU, any partner agency of ours that that works with Good Sam that identifies someone from the unincorporated area of Isla Vista and just the close surrounding area of Goleta. But this is a huge need, and I know that there has not been a shelter in that region until we did the pallet shelters. So I'm just really pleased that the county was able to not only identify a location, but be able to fund it. So super, super grateful for that.
Thank you. And I know one of my favorite parts about the pallet shelters was just seeing community members come by and offer to help. So if they wanted to bring socks, if they wanted to, I think, bring some Christmas tree decorations, there was just a really wonderful outpouring of support from people in the area. So wanted to address that, and I'll put Kirsten and Sylvia on the spot if they have ideas, but I will also say that the county-wide, we will have over 200 emergency housing vouchers that are able to lease up starting July 1st. So there are always barriers and challenges with leasing up. So always identifying units, any spaces where we can work on landlord recruitment is always helpful, especially with an emergency shelter. Moving folks from unsheltered homelessness into permanent housing is always the goal. It's great to have that safe space in between. But Kirsten or Sylvia, are there other ways that you already know folks can help?
Yeah, I'll go first, and I'll let Kirsten go because I know that she has a list. We can always use hygiene kits. That's always needed within an emergency shelter system. So that's something to think about. The other piece of it is that there's the main kitchen in this facility. General Services needs to work on it. Probably won't happen until the end of the year. So we're going to have 6 months of a very limited kitchen space to be able to utilize. And so any help that we can get on meals, dinners, we're way open to that. We're going to be as creative as possible. The staff are always really good at that, but it's something that people can help in. We can always use volunteers. We're recruiting for staff. So any of that is always welcome in the process. And the other piece that we do always think about as well is that, it's one thing that we provide shelter for them, but oftentimes when they move into permanent housing, they have absolutely nothing. And so, thinking about, if anyone has any items that could go on to, help them be able to set up their own home and their own unit would be great as well. So we can always use the help.
Those were the same things I was going to suggest as far as the meals go. I know that there's a lot of groups in Isla Vista that support the houseless community by helping with meals and things like that. So I'm excited to try to coordinate with them. And, at our other shelters, we have meal groups come in, on the third Tuesday of the month, the public defender's office comes, or this church comes, or this board comes and, provides or drops off meals. And, it's a model that's really worked in our programs and something I would really like to see in the Isla Vista community. I actually met with one of the churches today that provides meals in IV, who's very interested in getting churches together to help with this. So just that is such a huge way to help. And, the students have been wonderful. They've been dropping off all their canned foods right now as they're leaving to go home. And so they've been dropping them off at the shelters. Some of our clients were able to get some furniture items and things like that when it was move out day for UC Santa Barbara and the Isla Vista community right there. So, we've just really appreciated the incredible support of the community, and the students have definitely embraced this project, and it's been wonderful.
Thank you. So now if it's an appropriate time, we're happy to take any questions that the board might have.
Thank you all for that presentation. I just want to say off top how grateful I am for everyone that was involved in the Isla Vista Pallet Shelter project. So many, especially kudos to you, Kirsten and Sylvia, on the ground, working with our unhoused neighbors, and everyone involved in the outreach teams from County Behavioral Wellness, AmeriCorps, CityNet. It's just been really incredible to see how much success there has been with this program and being able to house so many of our neighbors that are unhoused. And it's just really a testament to your care and your dedication that there was so much success. So I just want to say on behalf of all Isla Vistans, a very hearty thank you for everything that you've done. I'd like now to go to the board and ask if there are any questions that they have. Director Flaherty.
I just have two smaller questions. Well, first of all, I echo everything that Spencer said as well. I think this project is so important, and I'm really happy that we can have these resources in Isla Vista. And I just really thank you all for your dedication and hard work. I know I've seen, a lot of presentations by you all, and I'm just like amazed by the work that you are doing. And then, two quick questions, and apologies if you already covered this as well. But I was wondering where exactly this would be, and then also what the average stay, how long that average stay is for a particular client. Or I don't know if it varies depending on needs and services.
Sure. Thank you, Director Flaherty. So I'll take the first one, and then I'll turn it over to the experts for the second. So for just to respect client confidentiality and the neighbors, for now we are we're not being as public about the address, but it is in Isla Vista. And Sylvia or Kirsten, do you want to talk about the average length of stay?
Yes, sorry about that. So emergency shelter typically is 90 days. We will give extensions on that. It's proven that they need more than 90 days to find permanent housing in Santa Barbara County. And then we have to help them get document ready, which means that many of them come without documents as far as driver's license, history. And so we try and help them recreate all of that so that they have all the documents they need to lease up. And I know that, we are going to open on July 1st. And so our plan is that at that point, I'm working with the county, because it's a county property, that the address will become known at that point. I think that they just want to be respectful of the neighbors and make sure that we do all the outreach we need to before our doors open. The other thought I had, and I don't know if it's appropriate, Spencer, is I was thinking that after the questions on this, perhaps you would like me to give an update on our plan for moving and what the schedule is. I'm sure that perhaps the board would be curious on that. So I'm happy to share that as well.
Yes, absolutely. I'd love if you could share that.
So barring that everything goes perfectly well in our perfect world, our big plan is this. On the 24th, which is on Thursday, our last clients will be moving out. Our residents will be moving out to a temporary location for 1 week period of time until they can move back into the new Hedges House of Hope. All of them have housing plans and they all have opportunities, but not before July 1st. And so there's those 4 clients left that we need to just temporarily house during that gap time. On the 24th, Marburg is scheduled to come pick up the showers and the restrooms and possibly the fencing as well. We're working on making sure security is there until the 25th. On the 25th, we believe that there's 3 semis that are coming, and our goal is to move all of those pallet shelters, each in a whole piece, onto the semis, load them up. They are going to be transported through the Gaviota Tunnel to Bridge House in Lompoc, and the county is investing, putting a more permanent pallet shelter there that will serve the individuals that are in Lompoc, the Lompoc region, and also serve those that are going to be affected by the riverbed cleanup, which will happen again most likely in the upcoming months. That we would have the same model that we did down in Isla Vista. So that is the schedule. We have until June 30th to clean it. I know that Kirsten and her team have been furiously trying to pack up and get everything together. And we have our maintenance staff scheduled down there as well. And we're working with General Services. General Services at the county has been nothing but gracious for Good Samaritan. They have been the most incredible partners for helping us get to where we need to get to. And also they're a big part of this next move. So we are not planning on moving any of the Isla Vista residents out of South County. They will stay temporarily in South County. They will not be going up to North County to any temporary shelter there. We're going to keep them in their local region, and they will be housed in South County where they have their support systems.
Thank you for sharing that, Sylvia. And I will just say that as the physical shelters move up to the city of Lompoc, I hope the city of Lompoc knows just how grateful they should be that a program like that will be able to become part of the permanent fabric of their system to try and help stabilize folks' lives. That is a great win for them.
Thank you.
I saw a hand from Director Deschler. Go ahead.
Hi, thank you. I've never been so happy to have the name Kirsten, because every time I hear Kirsten Cowan, I'm like, she's doing amazing stuff. And then I get all excited. We Kirstens have to stick together. There's so few of us. So I'll just echo my appreciation and just acknowledge the work that you all have done in Isla Vista. It's really, we hear so much about homeless issues and how there's so little solutions. And yet you all have seemed like you have created an initiative and a project and a program that works. And when I hear other jurisdictions in Santa Barbara County talking about their homeless issues, I just want to point them in your all's direction, because it seems like you've got it dialed in. And I love that this positive story and this positive program has come out of IV, and it's great for the people in Isla Vista, and it's great for our community, and then also to serve as a model for other places in the county. I think is really spectacular. I'm confused a little bit about so I have a couple questions. Knowing that I'm a big fan, I just have a couple questions. One is, I thought that this item was on the public agenda at the Board of Supervisors meeting, and that the address is part of that public item. Is that not correct?
Dr. Deschler, that is correct. So it is public information, but we're just not publicizing it as much.
Okay, so I'll respect that. And I won't say the location, but I do have a question about that, because where this is located is right next to a active sorority. And we did hear a lot of concerns about safety issues in Isla Vista around the encampments, not around the pallet shelters, because I know you all I saw your security guards sitting out there when I would get my bagel in the morning. So I know that you have security there, had security there. But I want to ask, what do you anticipate, given that this is a student neighborhood, that there is a sorority nearby next door? How does that work? Do you have on-site overnight staff? I know you said you'll have security in the evenings. Can you just talk a little bit about those concerns?
Yes. So thank you. Those are concerns that I'm sure that many people will have. So we do have 24-hour shelter staff. So it's not just a security guard. Security is going to be deployed from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. to make sure that everything is kept safe externally, and if there's any issues, that the security will be available. We will have 24-hour staffing. Our model is always to have staff 24/7, especially with our contract with the county. So even if we hire a security guard, ultimately somebody's always responsible on site. And so we have a structured program, we have curfew, we have, hours that everyone goes to bed. And we have, pretty structured program. The one thing that we found, especially working in Isla Vista, is that many of the individuals coming out of the encampments, Kirsten had shared many times, is that they didn't even have a structured sleeping time, right? That they were used to staying up all night. And so getting everyone settled at the same time and adjusted took quite a few weeks, but Kirsten and her team were able to get there as well. So we have 24-hour staffing. We also will have a security camera system. We have that in every program. It will be both outside and inside, just to make sure that that we can track everything on the security system as well. And then I think that, and then we'll have more staffing during the day as well. But that, we also do background checks. We don't take any violent offenders. We don't take anyone with an arson history. And we also do not take any registered 290s, which are registered sex offenders. And we check for that. So none of those individuals would be invited into our program. They have to be referred in, and we have to approve them coming in by a trusted, partner. So I don't know if that helps, or if you, that's
yeah, no, that's really helpful.
Yeah.
And then I wanted to ask, are these rooms single occupancy?
They're not. So they will be shared, but unlike our other shelters in North County, where we have mass, like we have dormitory style, and then there's, 40 people in a shelter on 20 bunk beds. This will be more individualized rooms, and they'll be shared rooms. So most rooms will have no more than 3 people. They're very large. It's designed as a sorority fraternity house, and so it's designed to have 2 to 3 people per room, and that's what we're going to stick to in this process. We're not going to, it could definitely hold more people than we're proposing, but right now, especially on the back end of COVID, that we're going to probably stay closer to the 50, but it definitely can easily house the 60 with the how it's designed to be able to have 2 to 3 people per room.
Got it. And then my last question is, what do you see the ramp up? So you envision opening up next month? Wow, next month.
I know, help us.
I'm sorry.
Right now, we were like, we don't have time for a meeting. We have to set up. Yeah, so our movement this week and next week is, without the superpowers of people like Kirsten, we're not going to make it work. So basically, Kirsten and her team, we're recruiting other staff. We do have other programs in Santa Barbara. We're recruiting everyone we can think of, including volunteers, to help. So our plan is that we have the ramp down on Thursday with the clients moving. That day, General Services will come unplug, as you will, all of those pallet shelters, prepare them to be movable Hopefully everything goes smooth with the semis. Those will be loaded up on forklifts and those will be transported out on the 25th. We have the cleanup going on at the community center and packing up. We're moving everything to the new location. We can't operate until July 1st. But we will be set. We're allowed to go in and set up. They're doing some minor work. General services is at that location. And then next week is just going to be set up around the clock, ramp up on staffing because a lot of our staff graduated. They were amazing. And then we're hoping to open up July 1st. We'll move those 4 back in and we're going to work with our partner agencies in Isla Vista to be able to, people can refer immediately in.
And so, thank you. Just one last thing, Lucille. And then, so what do you expect your occupancy to be? Do you expect that to go up to 50 within a month, or it just, do you have any sense of that?
I don't see it going to 50 in a month. That would be, the reason I say that is that I definitely think we're going to have referrals in, but there are these housing vouchers that are going to turn over quickly. And so so I don't have the numbers. I don't know if Lucille has them, but Good Samaritan has had incredible outcomes on placing people into permanent housing over the last year. We have outshined the entire county, other agencies almost combined in that. And so basically, as soon as they come in, we start working on trying to get them there, making sure they're stabilized in services. So I can't imagine we're going to ramp up to 50 within a month. I think it'll be slow going, but it's, the flow is going to be quick because there's a lot of opportunities to go into housing. With all the vouchers that are coming out, and we always make sure that our clients are a priority. That's how Kirsten was so successful in getting the clients to permanent housing. She got them on, if the clock was 8 a.m. at 7:58, she was entering in the data to push, enter. Her and her team are incredible. And we have like 10 people on our rapid rehousing team right now that are just working around the clock to make sure that we can get them to housing. So I would say that we would probably by the end of July maybe have 20 to 25 and then ramp up to 50. I would say probably closer to September, October is what I'm guessing. That's my thought, but could be surprised.
Great, thank you so much. Like I said, it's just really exciting to see something so amazing that's working, that's successful, that's transforming lives happen in IV. And I hope other communities are watching our board meeting tonight. That's all I have.
I'll add in that there will be, I think, regular opportunities to get involved too. So while this space will be, it's not just walk up or drop-in services. It's all through referral agency. I imagine that we'll have some sort of unveiling once we have official signage, and we are in contact with a muralist as well, just to kind of brighten up the space. So look for that in the coming months.
Excellent. That is great to hear. And thank you for your questions, Director Deschler. I will just add to what you mentioned right now, Lucille. Speaking personally, sign me up to help. I think our community, there are so many of us that will be so eager to help in whatever way we can to help make this project a success. It's just so significant because of the numbers that you just shared about how many people will be able to be served. And I actually went through and did some quick back of the envelope math a couple of days ago, looking at how many supportive housing units do we have in our community, because we are very much well served by the Pescadero Lofts as well. And I'm a neighbor of the Pescadero Lofts, so and a neighbor of the folks who live there. When doing that math, it became abundantly clear to me that other cities, areas of our county, such as the city of Santa Barbara, for example, have many, many more of these supportive housing units than Isla Vista does. And so this is just such a huge, significant step forward towards being able to have those services that are here in our community, serving the people who live here and who call this place home. So I'm just very excited to see this all come to fruition and to come to fruition so very quickly, and have very much confidence in your staff at Good Samaritan to be able to make this transition happen seamlessly. I will also say, speaking personally, if there's anything that we can do as a district or as directors to try and help bridge any communications gaps with the neighbors, I'm sure it's something that we will be very interested in helping with. Director Bertrand, I see your hand. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you. I just want to take a moment to just add on to the praise and thanks for the life-saving work that's taking place by all the service providers. We've seen our neighbors out on the streets for too long. Yes, it's increased as a result of COVID significantly, but even before that, we had too many people out living without a home, without services, and in many cases without hope. And the Hedges House for Hope will be such a force for good. And I'm really encouraged and inspired that this can take place in our community. And as Director Deschler said, be a model for other communities as well. So just thank you so much for everyone who's involved with this. This will make a real difference.
Thank you, Director Bertrand. Are there any other comments or questions from members of the board? All right, seeing none, I think I'm going to open up public comment. Anyone who wishes to speak on this item may hit the raise hand button or add something in the chat, and I will call on you to go ahead. I see a hand from Mark Vukovic. Mark, go ahead.
Hi, everyone. No sort of unique hot take. I just want to voice my support as like a member of this community, and that this is just so important. And it's been such a privilege to walk by the pallet homes and just see the results of all of the hard work and all of the pieces that had to come together, and to then have this kind of more, bigger scale thing in our community. It's just so incredibly exciting, and really a great step forward for this community. So thank you to everyone involved, and good work. And I'm looking forward to seeing this better the community.
Thank you for your comments, Mark. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak on this item? I see a hand from Melissa. Go ahead, Melissa.
Our family wants to tell you how excited we are that this is, I mean, I'm sure Father John knows what's going on here. So anyway, and anyway, we know all about all of you. So it's very special to see you all together and talking about making this transition house for 50. And anyway, the loft has worked beautifully, and this is kind of the same thing. And anyway, we're grateful. Thank you all so much. This granddaughter, Sydney. Hello. We'd love to stay involved in any way that we can. So please, keep letting us know how we can help, stuff like that. So thank you.
Thank you for those comments. Are there any other members of the public who would like to speak? Okay, seeing none, I'll close the public comment period. And I will just say that I think we would be very remiss not to remark upon the important symbolic nature of the name. We all together served with Father John as one of our founding board members, and I'm sure that he is looking down on us today with a huge smile on his face to see that this project is able to come to fruition, and seeing into the future all of the lives that will be changed because of this. And he had such a passion for the work that he did, an unwavering commitment to helping improve people's lives. And I don't think that there could be a more fitting name for this project. So for our board, if there are no other comments, then I think we'll conclude this presentation. And I just, again, want to thank everyone involved in this project, the County General Services, Good Samaritan, and all the service providers for the update. Thanks, everyone. Okay, we're now going to move to the next item on our agenda, which is funding requests from the St. George Youth Center for Summer Services.
Great, and we'll turn it over to Ashley Irving, who's here to present again. And Ashley, you can share your screen.
Oh gosh, I don't have it armed and ready this time.
Don't worry.
Thanks, Jonathan. I should have known better. Well, I just want to appreciate the opportunity to come before the board of directors once again with a revised proposal. I think you'll find that it's significantly revised to better align with the kind of governing expectations of how the funding is allowable. And so I kind of changed the formatting, as you'll see in a minute here by Jonathan, to do a better job with transparency around what funding we have coming in. And I can even elaborate on some partnerships that we've entered into recently to support our summer programming, one of those being with Goodwill Industries. So on the revenue side, you can see if this was a question that was posed by a member last 2 weeks ago. So you can see some of the sources of revenue that are supporting our summer program. One of the things we did do is we reduced our program. So we have cut back by a full week of programming. And that's really just to manage the expenses and also prepare for other activities that will be happening throughout in preparation for the new year, essentially. So you can see on the revenue side, this request has been adjusted to a $6,561 request. And it is specific, as you'll see in the kind of side note there, to the Nuestra Voz program that will be held on the St. George Youth Center facility at that site. You can see here that it is for 14 Isla Vista students. We are expecting 16 participants. Currently, one of those, out of the 16, we have one student currently enrolled from Goleta, a former Isla Vista student, but currently recently relocated to Goleta. So really to just demonstrate that this support would be very specific to Isla Vista students. I've also shared a little bit of our breakdown based on our demographics and those we're currently serving. You can see roughly 88% are specifically from the Isla Vista community. And other than that, I think it looks pretty comparable to last time, but just really kind of reframed it and reformatted it so that it would better align with your allowances. Can I respond to any questions?
Absolutely. Thank you for the presentation, Ashley. I'll ask the board of directors, are there any questions on the funding request? I think I saw a hand from Jay, or maybe just a thumbs up. Just a thumbs up. Great. I don't think that I have any questions on this funding request other than I will just say that I'm very appreciative of the revisions to bring everything in line with what is allowable for us. And this program, I think, is going to make such a positive impact, and I think is a great and important use of the money that we have allocated for community programming. I said before, I benefited from similar programs growing up as a child, and having something to do during the summer as a kid is so important in terms of keeping our community healthy, vibrant, and safe. And I'm very supportive of the request in its current form.
Thank you.
Any comments from board members? Director Geis, go ahead.
I'll make a motion to approve the funding request from St. George Youth Center for summer services.
Made by Geis. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Bertrand. Okay, so then at this time, I think we'll open up public comment on the motion. Do any members of the public have requests to speak on this item? All right, seeing none, I'll bring it.
And this goes in conjunction with our partnership with Isla Vista Youth Projects for a summer program for younger kids too. So youth in Isla Vista will be having a fun, engaging, and healthy summer.
Agreed.
Thank you for those comments, Ethan. Any other comments from the board of directors? Director Freeman.
Actually, we probably should at least just hear it officially. Ross, does this satisfy the issues that we had last time?
Yes, it does.
All right.
Excellent. Thank you for that question. Seeing no other comments, I think we can call the question to a vote.
Director Brandt,
Yes.
Flaherty,
Yes.
Deschler,
Yes.
Bertrand,
Yes.
Geis,
Yes.
Aguilar,
Yes.
Freeman.
Yes.
All right, motion passes. Thank you, Ms. Irving, for the presentation, and we'll be looking forward to hearing more about the program as it progresses. And just thank you for everything that the St. George Youth Center and the YMCA does.
Absolutely. Thank you all so much for your support.
All right, we're going to move to the next item on our agenda, which is the discussion on Halloween weekend 2021. And I will turn it over to Jonathan to introduce this.
Great, thank you. So we don't have any materials or anything for this proposal. It came out of Director Bertrand and I were talking about getting this on the agenda for early discussion to see where the board is at for Halloween so that we can work on something and bring it back early enough to get something planned. So I'll turn it over to him to give his overview.
Yes, thank you. So I had a phone call with Jonah from Lucidity. He was interested in learning more about what our district's plan is for Halloween. And I know Halloween seems so far away, but each year it really creeps up on us. And when we're looking at programming for festival weekends, we're oftentimes scrambling. So I let him know about what we have in our preliminary budget for festival programs for this coming year. And also that our board likely will be very interested in doing something for Halloween. But he made the good point of that it's just important for our board to be at least stating right now if that's the direction that we are going, because the summer is going to fly by and we will be in fall. So our intention for bringing this forward tonight is just to kind of get consensus among board members that we do want to have some sort of event or program during Halloween weekend in collaboration with other community service providers and organizations, and to kind of see if any directors have any preliminary ideas on what such a process should look like as far as just getting the balls rolling on that specific initiative.
Thank you for that, Ethan. So I'll open it up to the board if there is any feedback on that question. Director Freeman.
I'm curious essentially for the specific event of Halloween, to differentiate from discussions that we've had about events such as Deltopia. What precisely, and I mean, I've got different ideas, so it's not like I'm saying I don't see one at all, but I'm curious what the goal that people are seeing is. And the reason why I asked that question is that the default goal that we've often had in the past with relation to Halloween is prevent there being an event as large as there had been back when I was a student, for better or for worse. And we just haven't really had a Halloween event, not just because of the pandemic. For years before the pandemic, Halloween wasn't really a thing. So if the goal is that, I kind of question the purpose, but there are other goals. I mean, I liked Halloween. So if the goal is to bring Halloween back, I mean, I would potentially be very excited about that, but I'm just curious what other directors think the purpose is.
Sure. So I'll start on that. I think that's a really good question. For the past 7 years that I've been in Isla Vista, what you described has been the case, where Halloween is a weekend that does not necessarily have many fun events, but at the same time, it does have a lot of resources poured into it that many have argued are not sustainable long term, and a lot of those resources have, to some extent, given Isla Vista Halloween a bad rap. Things that were once emergency measures have now turned into a weekend that just doesn't feel great for our community. And at the same time, we know that people do like to go out and do like to celebrate Halloween. So it's about finding a balance between how do we keep it safe, keep it local, as we say every year, but also make sure that Ivy residents are able to really feel safe, not just as far as maintaining order and making sure that things don't get out of control, but having something that people can have fun with, and that people can enjoy themselves, enjoy their neighbors, enjoy their community.
I'm just thinking back, and even 5, might have been 6 years ago, but it was certainly 5 years ago at least. I standing out on Del Playa, hanging around all of the UCIV booths that had people handing out water on a Del Playa that had literally nobody on it. And the memory that was so poignant to me was that that like made it, the contrast was that a group of people had decided to actually do Halloween. They put together a group costume of the like Tetris blocks, and they had a boombox blasting the Tetris music. And I saw them as I was standing there come down one of the vertical streets and come onto Del Playa, the Tetris music, and they just kind of stopped. And they looked around as they realized they were the only people there. And the person just puts the boombox down like, what happened? And they just looked so sad. And they came over to the UCIV booth, got some water, and then of course had nowhere to go and left. And so I'm just trying to understand where all the resources, it's not like the resources are reaction right now to a bunch of bad things are happening. We're going to send in a bunch of emergency services. To the extent to which there are resources being poured, it just seems to be the idea that maybe something might happen. And it's not even clear to me that we even had much of an expenditure. I mean, we even grilled the police sometimes. They're like, oh yeah, we weren't certain if there would be that many people showed up. And so we got everything on kind of like some kind of contingency, and we didn't end up having to spend most of it. So I'm really curious if Halloween actually is still the issue that it was, if that's the goal. But on the other side, the businesses miss Halloween. I mean, having a bunch of people come outside, show up, go around all of the restaurants and buy food. I mean, that was a big deal for a lot of them, and they felt like it was almost being that the university and the county were essentially taking away something that was critical to the local commercial district. And to the extent to which we want to try to reinvigorate that, I think that also kind of changes, like when we know what the purpose is, it can change what it is that we try to obtain now, like how we do it, like with the processes, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I'll jump in and add to both your comments about sharing the sense of Halloween. Really, the entire time that I've lived in Isla Vista has not existed. But I do really want to emphasize what Director Bertrand mentioned about how there are so many resources, hundreds of thousands of dollars that go into that weekend continually every year. And I think from what I have learned, and I think what we have learned from embarking upon the discussion around Deltopia and creating an organized event, is that creating an organized event is the pathway for us to be able to start to transition those resources towards more of those programming type activities that are safe, that are fun for the community, that will help stimulate the business district. And I see with the Isla Vista Community Center now, as we are emerging from COVID, a great opportunity there to be able to have something fun for the community to do on that night, whatever day of the week it happens to fall on. I am just envisioning maybe a really cool costume party with live music. I know one of the few events that we were able to host at the Ivy Community Center before COVID hit was the Jeffrey's Jazz Coffee House, where there was dancing and live music. And, I could just see something like that being very, very beneficial to the community, and very, I think, necessary for us to start to transition those resources towards more programming, and to rethink the way that we do large events in Isla Vista. So I'm supportive of us embarking upon some sort of an organized event for Halloween. I think that on one hand, it will be a little bit of a dry run, I think, for what I hope that we do during Deltopia, which is a much more significant feat because that event continues to happen each year. And with this, I think we'll be able to sort of work out any of the kinks, really test different concepts in a way that I think could be really beneficial for that project as well. Director Aguilar, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you for bringing this up, Ethan. I have luckily a similar perspective as Director Freeman in that I got to enjoy a handful of very legitimate Isla Vista Halloweens. And 2 points I wanted to make before I ask my questions are that there were 2 different times in which the university, when I was a student, was very proud of Isla Vista's Halloween. So being a first year coming into orientation, I'm not sure exactly which professor was giving this talk, but it was a talk to tons of parents, tons of students who are about to come in. And it was very much like a bragging point about how cool Isla Vista was, how cool our culture was here as a community, and that we had a bigger party, according to this professor, than Mardi Gras in New Orleans. But people weren't talking about Isla Vista Halloween on that same level. And then even my second point is that for years you would see photographs in the Nexus of Chancellor Yang participating fully in Halloween with his own different varieties of costumes and going out and interacting and walking in the middle of the sea of people. So there was a point in which like our community was very proud of Halloween, despite it being like very rambunctious. And so I'm wondering like what the turning point was, and if the turning point is specifically the Deltopia riots, and I use that in quotes because I have a very different perspective on the word riot and Deltopia and all that. And the rest of that spring was very tumultuous, and that the very next fall was now the squashing of Halloween, which previously was always a joyous Isla Vista moment. And so I guess my questions are, do we have the capacity to like, you know, ask the university and ask the city college for participation in making like a community event? Because I think the only real problem is that if people want to participate in Isla Vista Halloween, but they're not attached to UCSB and they're not attached to Santa Barbara City College, they might not have anything to do than throw a big rager, which is can be okay, can be really positive, but if we're concerned about safety and about alcoholism and substance abuse, then we're going to have to rely on these other superpowers like the university, like the city college. We can't be the only superpower who's like tackling these hard issues. So that's my question, and it's kind of a request if we can if that's even possible.
I think your points are absolutely, spot on. And there definitely has been a good partnership. But I think now we are looking at what was a turning point towards, all right, we need to calm things down. And now maybe we're in a turning point to see how do we make this something really positive, something that can be celebrated as part of IV's identity, like what you described. And I would defer to Jonathan and Kirsten on that, as 2 folks who were actively involved in leadership during that difficult time.
Wait, what did you want us to respond on exactly?
I mean, if you wanted to comment on any of what Marcos was asking about, just university and city college involvement, or what the turn was around 2014, 2015 towards a different type of effort as far as just trying to make Isla Vista Halloween something that wasn't really a thing, versus like where we're at now, where how do we make it something that's positive, safe, but that residents can enjoy? If you had any thoughts.
I mean, I just say that I think Halloween was dying down by 2014 already. Like 2013 Halloween was pretty empty from my memory. But yeah, I mean, it was the campus doing the concert and the rain in 2014 that kind of broke the cycle, and it hasn't come back since that. But I mean, there was always an effort to increase the policing. That wasn't new in 2014, I'd say. The policing was huge. I think even bigger in 2010, my first year, I think, from my memory. But I know in 2014 was after the riot, the Deltopia and the shooting. So there were additional things done, but you know, a lot of that stuff was already being done. The concert was the new thing in 2014.
Director Freeman, go ahead.
Yes, I mean, as much as I always tend to focus on the positives, I want to make certain that I would feel dishonest if I didn't point out that the Halloween had the university and the county had been attempting to shut down Halloween for a long time for some good reasons. I mean, I've heard stories of Halloween back in the 90s, which was before I got here. I got here in 99, whereas it was standing room only from Del Playa all the way up through like Posada, or maybe even further. When I was a student, it was like standing room only on Del Playa and there was like some people on Sabada. And the experience that I had was the university setting up essentially what was almost kind of like an organized party zone of setting up floodlighting in order to just like say that this is where the party happens. Clearly, if you exit the floodlighting, it feels like you've left the party, in order to kind of first compress it and then to change the dynamics of it. I mean, it was in 2004 that I wrote an article for the Daily Nexus, I mentioned before, which is like Halloween could be fun if Isla Vista were a democracy. Like a set up idea of like if we had a local government here, maybe we could organize it better rather than just trying to crack it down on police. So it's certainly not something new that has happened as of 2014 or anything, that the people are trying to shut down this event. And when I have like photos that I took that are of the event, where I kind of like a sequence wherein it's you see a bunch of people standing in a crowd and it feels like they must be packed in inside. And I'm like, no, these people are outside. You can look up at the sky and you can turn over to the side and you can see that here's a street light. This is actually the street. Here are people standing on top of a car, because of course the party is also includes on top of the car. Here is a video of a bunch of people on a giant wooden structure that they're pushing through as a pirate ship, a group pirate costume with a pirate ship, where there's a person in the front just screaming, "Get out of the way," in the hope that the sea of people will part before they get there. The police and the local fire have often been very concerned about the ability to get to locations in order to help people. And in fact, I mean, I even knew somebody who had a costume that was like a fireman's costume. What it was a fire hat with like a propane tank that shot a 4-foot flame of fire from their head, which when people started trying to light cigarettes on it, the police were like, "No, this is really bad. You have to not do this." Like Halloween has had a bunch of very dangerous elements to it, from its complete lack of organization and structure, and the fact that it is operated as an unofficial event out of a bunch of people's houses. And that's why it's kind of the thought process that I'd always been a part of is, what if it could be organized as a fun, structured event that was, for example, in the downtown like commercial area of Isla Vista. And that by doing such a thing in Isla Vista, but not, and this is where sometimes I think I end up having almost grading differences of opinion with people, where it's like, I'm not on the like local only standpoint. I mean, I've heard people point out that like if you were to go to other cities where not much is really happening, and you were to tell them that thousands of people show up every year to our location and they have nothing to do, how do we stop anyone from ever coming here ever again? They would look at you like you're insane, because they go to great lengths to run events and to do advertising campaigns and to do anything they can in order to get people from out of the area to care enough to come into their area and buy things from the local restaurants and be able to have large events. To the extent to which people, and I know this is also a very controversial example, the extent to which people have looked at things like Fiesta. Fiesta has issues to it. I mean, there have been fist fights that have broken out during Fiesta, but people tend to not look at Fiesta as, okay, well, we need to figure out how to do everything we can in order to shut this event down. They try to figure out how to keep promoting it, despite the fact that it's even like culturally awkward. And it's like, why, like, this is like a weird event to be having. But people they want to have something going on that brings people to the area. And so I keep looking at this. If we can have, I mean, if we can have something that like can be safe and can be organized and can actually make people hear about IV and come here and not be chaotic about it. I think a big aspect of that, by the way, is just that if you hear that there's like somebody running an event and there's like a website for it and there's like tickets you maybe even had to obtain for it or something, that already just changes like the kind of person who would show up, because it doesn't feel like chaos that you're purposely showing up to. It sounds like you're actually showing up to something that might actually exist. I think there's a lot of opportunity to have like a good effect. Now, that said, I mean, I don't think that's never been the default purpose. The default purpose has always been, how do we construct alternative programming in order to prevent people from having a large out of control party that causes us to have emergency services come to the area in order to pay a lot of money, because we do spend apparently, like there was one point it was like $6 million on these events. I mean, when we did the financial feasibility study, that was like the big reason why you couldn't have a city, was just because we were spending all of our money on emergency services for these events. So yeah, that's bunch more random thoughts to kind of toss out there on this idea of what the purpose is. But I would feel remiss if I left it as like, oh yeah, this event was great. And it's like, okay, you know, it was some kind of recent thing. It was like, we've been, as a region, trying to stop this event for at least since I've been here 20 years ago. So.
Yeah, thanks for that. Director Freeman. Director Flaherty, I see your hand up.
Yeah, thank you. So I have had 3 Halloweens in Isla Vista, one of which has been during a pandemic, so 2 real ones. And I remember when I mean, you come to college and you think, oh yeah, I see so many other schools having really cool Halloween weekends. I wonder what's going to happen in our community. And then I'm in the dorms and our RA is telling us not to go out at all. There's a ton of fencing up. I don't even know if this is true, but he said that there would be police on horseback. Not sure, you know, I didn't go there because I was too scared, so I stayed in my dorm. But all I heard was stories about like police everywhere. And you know, don't go out at all, like don't cross the fences into IV, you know, like it's a dangerous place out there. And you know, I would love to have a safe, organized Halloween. I think there's a way that we can do it in a safe way. I mean, I think our biggest thing that we're worried about is public safety and just making sure that people feel safe in Isla Vista, and with a pandemic too, making sure that, you know, things, I mean, as the situation evolves, that it's aligned with what's happening. But I support a sense of programming that would make Isla Vista safe and have people enjoy the weekend. I looked it up, it's going to be on a Sunday, so there will be a true Halloween weekend. And I mean, I guess this is kind of a question. Well, I'm assuming all the festival ordinances and everything will remain in place for Halloween. Okay. And then what else? Yeah, I think Jay brought up a good point also in mentioning businesses. We've seen so many of our local businesses really be affected by the pandemic. And I think if we were able to provide some programming that would be able to, you know, bring our community out and supporting local businesses, I think that would be a great thing. I just summed this down. Kind of a little jumbled right now, but yeah, I would support some organization and having a Halloween that we can all enjoy, and have it not be something that you hear about in the dorms and you're like, what is going on in Isla Vista? So yeah, I also thank you, Ethan and Jonathan, for bringing this for more conversation with the board too. I think it's great that we're talking about this early, because it will come up fast, and if we do want to put on an event, we'll need that time to prepare.
Thank you for that, Director Flaherty. Director Bertrand, go ahead.
Thank you. Appreciate everyone's feedback. And again, just bringing this because we were getting phone calls and emails about this, and just had to get it on the board's radar. Preliminary discussion. I think we should continue this to our next meeting. I know we have a packed agenda, but it's good that we're starting to think about this. I mean, no matter what, this has to be a partnership, and we can't solve every issue, but we can do something good in partnership with our other stakeholders in Isla Vista. So thanks, everyone.
Thank you for that, Director Bertrand. I want to open it up for comments from members of the public. If you have a public comment, go ahead and hit the raise hand button, or you can put something in the chat and I will call on you. I see a hand from Jeff Walsh. Go ahead, Jeff.
Hi, everyone. Thank you. I don't want to take too much time. I mean, Ethan said, pointed out, let's move on. You got a packed agenda. I just want to say a couple things. I mean, giving you a historical perspective. I mean, back in the day in the 70s and 80s, Halloween was fun, but it did tend to get out of control because everybody invited their friends from LA and NorCal, and it really did get out of hand. And, whereas, I mean, I agree with a lot of what Jay said, but I don't agree with everything he said. Like bringing people to IV, it's like it's not a tourist destination except for surfers and people like me who romanticize their years in Isla Vista in the past. And as far as, and I appreciated Catherine's input too, but like, bringing people to support the businesses, all you're supporting is the liquor stores. I mean, that's all people are going to do is buy booze. And, what happened was it started kind of, getting real big. And I'm sure Director Geis could offer some historical perspective, having been the previous auditor controller for many years. They sent in the cops to beat heads and crack down, and it cost a lot of money. And the emergency personnel issue that Jay highlighted, and problems with sexual assault. And so there's been problems. So, and I appreciate the thought about, trying to organize an event instead of counter programming, try to like own it and make it good. That seems like a good impulse. But I also would caution you, how many Halloween parties have you gone to that were like really organized? Because really, what the ideal Halloween party in Isla Vista for me would be just one big community Isla Vista party where people are coming down the stairs in these group costumes and they don't have to stop and look around and go, what's happening? They see other, and it's a fun thing. It's just, how do you encourage that and yet keep the numbers down enough so that, it's not, you're not inviting the county to come in and, beat heads, which is obviously what no one wants.
Excellent. Thank you for your comments, Jeff. Appreciate your input on that. I'm going to go now to Mark Vukovic to be followed by Justin Schroeder.
Hi, everyone. I really appreciated this discussion. Well, first, I want to just appreciate the board for having the foresight to have this discussion now, because it's important to have this discussion now and not wait until the month before to try to do something. I'd love even I know that nothing happened for Deltopia this year in terms of the programming, and I think budget elements from that could go to something like this for Halloween or even the next Deltopia. But in terms of the actual kind of specifics, I really agree with bringing the university in this discussion, because it seems like part of the the reduction of Halloween over the years has stemmed from the university, even just through I don't even know how to describe it. I mean, even just through the way that RAs are trained to talk about Halloween and public events, and those sorts of things. But I also really agree that I think Halloween could be really, really cool and really beneficial for this community. I've talked to, I would say, I don't want to overestimate, but I'm going to say 3 small business owners have told me that their the largest revenue sources of their year of a single day was Halloween. Only one I'm going to mention is Tom, who owns Ivy Drip, said that that was the largest revenue source of the whole year was Halloween. When you consider that because of the way Isla Vista is and the student population, that they had many days of 0 revenue during Thanksgiving, or Christmas, or interim periods in the summer. Having those single days are really critical and really important for these businesses. And I think that's something that needs to be acknowledged and remembered. And then it's not, with all due respect, it's not just the liquor stores. I mean, it's places like Deja Vu, it's these places that have late night food. And I think that's important. And to kind of further the discussion on what could be really cool, I think it would be so awesome to have like a costume contest, that would be like awesome. Like within like people really I don't know if you've ever been to a good Halloween party yourselves, to anyone who's listening, but like when everyone is really trying and really having fun, Halloween can be a really, really fun day, spooky decorations on your house contest or whatever. And I also think this could be a great time period to try all the ideas that have been mentioned before of closing down Pardal, or even closing down something like I don't know, like Abrego, just to kids who want to trick or treat. I don't know if Abrego is the right street, but there are streets that have more families and there are streets that have less families, and considering that sort of thing. And so overall, I'm really grateful for this discussion, and I think it'd be really, really important to have a good Halloween and a healthy amount of outsiders. I think would be beneficial, but as long as framed correctly and done tactfully and artfully. And if those things can't be done tactfully and artfully, then we don't have the outsiders, and that's I think that's fine. But if we can do that artfully, then we can. I'm from Orange County. We have the Orange International Street Fair, where it's a very similar thing to Fiesta in its problems and its successes. And so thinking about those sorts of things. Anyways, I kind of rambled, but that's my comment. Thank you all.
Thank you for your comments, Mark. I appreciate that. I'm going to move next to Justin Schroeder, to be followed by Carrie Topliff.
Hi, thanks everybody. Great discussion. I just wanted to comment real quick, Jeff, great public comments. I just worry a little bit when I hear directors say things like, let's bring Halloween back. I saw some really bad years out here. I just picked a year after the Deltopia riot, so that doesn't factor into people's decision on what I'm saying. But in 2016, we had 56 forcible rapes and 48 sexual assaults in Isla Vista. So when people say, let's bring this back, I worry about what that looks like to those victims, those survivors, and those families that those terrible things happened to them. In the last few years, I get it. There's been no Halloween and no party, and yet we killed it, and it looks like nobody's having any fun, but we also don't have those 100 victims and survivors. So I don't know what your number is on what's allowed and what's a good number for that, but I guarantee that's going to go right back up if you quote, bring the party back, like Jay said. So just be careful. That's a big number, and it's horrible to investigate those crimes. So look at it from that perspective as well. Thanks.
Thank you for your comments, Justin. Next, Carrie Topliff, go ahead.
Hi, I also have very fond memories of Halloween in the 70s and 80s in Isla Vista, and think it's a terrible shame that what happened. But listening to Jay Freeman's remarks, it totally made me think of Burning Man because of the propane tank and the fire. But also, it seems like one of the cool things about Burning Man is that there is a whole organization of people who are rangers there, who are trained to deal with problems. And Isla Vista is such a controllable access environment, just like Burning Rock Desert is for Burning Man, that you could make people buy tickets in advance to even breach the perimeter of Isla Vista. And then you could train this whole apparatus of rangers. And when I see what you all have been doing with homeless, it just seems like there's so many volunteers there who have such good hearts and are so eager to have a good community. I think that you could really do something very exciting.
Thank you for those comments, Carrie. Are there any other comments from members of the public? All right, I'm not seeing any. I'll close public comment and bring it back to the board. Director Bertrand, go ahead.
Yes, thank you for all the public comments. I just have a clarifying question, which there was a statistic referencing issues of sexual assault and rape, and obviously that's very serious for our community, and we want to do everything possible to support survivors and to end sexual violence in our community. And with that being said, I just want to clarify, the statistics that were referenced, are those specific to Halloween weekend, or are those annual totals?
That's probably for me. That's an annual total, and those were obtained from a BuzzFeed article that was a PRA request from our department. If I were to pull up the stats, as your board knows, it's going to take a while to get current stats. And so I know from providing those statistics to your board over the last 3 years, those have been down significantly in the 70 to 80% range. And so, yeah, those were yearly stats.
Thank you. Yes, obviously very concerning, heartbreaking that we have such numbers. But I really have to say I'm really bothered by bringing that up just in regard to Halloween. I think it does a disservice to this issue in Isla Vista. We're talking about making it safer by actually providing some sort of programming that gives people a safe place to be. And I'm sure the comments were well-intentioned, but I just don't understand how we can identify those tragedies and point to Halloween, to doing something safe about Halloween as a threat. So I respect what was said, but I don't see how that is a good argument for what we're trying to do here. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments, Director Bertrand. I share what I think everyone who spoke in public comment, or the majority of speakers in public comment, I think we're getting at, which is we need to do something that promotes safety through using different strategies of environmental design, organization. I really enjoyed the comment about the Rangers at the Burning Man Festival, and it reminded me so very clearly of the Guardian program that the Lucidity Festival provides, where they have folks who are trained in harm reduction that are sort of a layer before you get to official security, that help to keep the event safe, help to keep it orderly. And I think that really, with what we have already discussed in the past with our plans for Deltopia, which didn't come to fruition because of the pandemic, I think that we have such a huge opportunity to be able to deploy something like that on a probably smaller scale than we would see during Deltopia, but in a way that creates things for people to do that are fun and that are organized. I'll just say again, I don't think I've been to, well, I will say positively, I've never been to a Halloween party in Isla Vista. They don't exist because of what we've done to this event. And I also know that oftentimes,
Sorry, I'm slow.
Sorry, if folks can mute, that would be helpful. I will also share that I know that in the absence of organized activities is often when we see increases of behaviors that we would consider antisocial and not a bolster to the public safety because there's no organized activities. So I think giving people something to do in an organized fashion is really going to improve the safety of the community in such a big way. And I appreciate the discussion that everyone was able to have on this today. Any other comments from board members? All right, seeing no other comments, I think we'll continue this item to a future meeting. Looking forward to seeing additional proposals coming forward. All right, the next item we have on our agenda was going to be a letter, and we are going to skip that item and bring that back at a later date. So now we'll go into recess. We're going to recess for 5 minutes. It's 7:29 right now, so we'll be back at 7:34 p.m.
Do people know how to lower their hands if their hands are raised? I guess so.
All right. Hi, everyone. We're going to go ahead and reconvene the meeting. I'll give it a second for directors to come back online, and then we'll get started again. Okay, looks like we've got everyone back. So we're going to reconvene to our regular meeting. And before we start, I see a hand from Director Bertrand. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you, President Brandt. I just want to mention when dealing with issues of sexual assault, it's so important that when trying to prevent sexual assault and responding to this horrible crime, that we talk about combating the behaviors that lead to it, the systems that normalize rape and sexual assault, and everything behind that. And what we see too often, and what we've seen in the past, is that people talk about what the survivor was doing, whether that was going to a party, what they were wearing, what state of mind they were in. And by no means should that be the focus of confronting these issues. We need to focus on rooting out the behaviors that lead to sexual assault. And when we're talking about how do we change the culture and how do we have safe spaces for people to be, that's something that's changing the environment. And by having people at those events, in no means does that have anything to do with increasing risk for sexual assault. Risk for sexual assault exists because people act in ways that do not respect other people's bodily autonomy. And that's really what we need to address. And I just put it out there because we have a lot of survivors in our community. This is an issue that is dear to many people's hearts. And it's really important that we speak in a way that is supportive of survivors and also a way that encourages progress on this issue. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Director Bertrand. I appreciate you really articulating that, and I completely agree. It should be our job to support survivors, and supporting survivors means not engaging in language that in a lot of ways, I think, misattributes the causes of this violence and really centers and acknowledges their experiences. So I appreciate that the statistic that was shared was clarified, but I also just think, again, for the record, want to clarify that that statistic was not in reference to Halloween. It was a yearly statistic. And I just want to clarify, just because I know, especially nationwide in our community right now, we're in a environment of heightened dis and misinformation. And I know that I've seen many other communities in our state struggle with that, especially when it does come to the prevalence of violence and crime statistics in their community and what the actual truth behind that is. So I appreciate you for bringing that up. And I know that we will all strive for these goals of safety in our community for all, especially survivors, moving forward. Okay, I'd like to move to the next item on our agenda, which is the 2021-22 preliminary budget. And I'll hand it over to Jonathan and the rest of our staff, who I know have been working very diligently at putting this together over the past number of weeks. Go ahead.
Great, thank you. Thankfully, our finance committee does this work, over many months. And we've been looking at it. So it's a little easier than doing it all at once. So this is also only one point in our budget process. We're approving the preliminary budget today, hopefully with amendment, if any, and the final budget won't come until August. But this is a legal step that we need to take today before we can figure out other factors of the budget later this summer in July. So, you've got two documents, a staff report that just, it's the same one we use every year that kind of explains what each of the revenue sources is and what the expenditure program areas are. And then you've got the technical budget document that has this is the top line budget. You've got the programs. I'm going to walk through all these, but just explaining the sheet. the programs. You've got the estimated actuals from this year that you can check out to compare. You've got the revenue projections, and then you've got our fund balance analysis, which is not final yet because the year hasn't ended, but this is just our projection right now. So we'll start with the good news. The revenues for this preliminary budget, $1.4 million. And we've officially passed $1 million for the utility user tax. That's a big milestone, I think, for us when it had originally started at a lower projection, less than 700,000. So we're at $1 million now. We've already passed $1 million for this fiscal year, but the way our projections work, it is going to be a little lower right now until the final June numbers come in, but that won't be until July 20th. So as of now, with all the information we have, our utility user tax is $1,010,000 for next year. Next is the UCSB grant. Because we're using some residual fund balance from the interpersonal investigator from the 2019-2020 year that we didn't end up using because of COVID. This is a little lower this year. We could increase this based on other projects that come up. And if you look at the fund balance sheet in the budget document, you'll see we even have $100,000 from previous years that haven't been used at UCSB. So we can request more because we're under the 200,000, but this is just all we need right now for the ongoing operations that we discussed. But it was a discussion at the finance committee. You know, we do have additional, so what could we maybe want to use it on? The residual fund balance. This is again using the leftover funds from previous years or this year from UCSB grants for some of our programs that didn't get used, and also the compost collective grants came in during this fiscal year. So we saved them in the fund balance and then used them the next year. So that's what this section and it's broken down here by amount. So you'll see, you know, the 37,000 for the compost, 21,000 for the mediation, and 47,000 between the safety stations and the investigator. The grants, so this is our STEP grant that we won. 115,000 should be in this fiscal year. So that's the revenues. Anybody have any questions on the revenues? Okay, so $1.4 million this year. It's gone up. Expenditures, so I'm not going to go like line by line here, but I'll explain the programs. So, you know, we've got our operations. This includes the part one is our staff and all the benefits for that. Our 3 staff members now and our attorney. We have our communications program, which we use to do all of our marketing and advertising and internet and membership in other organizations. We've got our office line item or a program where we used to stock our office and train our staff and operate. You know, the 4,000 right now for the office expense, we didn't spend yet the money for the return to office supplies out of this fiscal year, and it's looking like we're not going to need to, or we're not going to be able to because of the credit card. So we might need to end up changing this number because we had planned that expense to happen this year, but it looks like it'll happen next year. But we already talked with the finance committee about that money coming out of one of the years. Next up is administrative. This is just the administrative fees we need to pay for, payroll, timesheets, things like that. Our liability insurance is just something to note, does go up every year, and it usually the factor that they use to scale the insurance is our payroll. So every year our payroll changes, they will change our liability insurance based on that. And there's more liability insurance tied to the compost collective than the general one. And then the board members, which is the $100 for the 2 meetings, which is what it's currently budgeted at. Community center, this is one where we're keeping general. We're just having our base, 1 staff member and money for grants and programming until negotiations complete. So that's one of the reasons we're in a preliminary budget. Special projects, we've talked about this. If things come up that we want to put money behind, either small or large, this is our pool to draw from. Survivor Resource Center, we can start using this more like normal again. So we kept the budget the same. Program development, we kept at 0. Community garden is continuing at 19,000, and that's what they requested in their report at the last meeting. So we're keeping that at 19,000. Compost collective raised to 80,000 to incorporate the costs of the new program manager. And we have the equipment and IT costs now as part of our budget, which they didn't used to be since we didn't need to spend that yet. Community festival, keeping this at 55,000. So go a little fat, we're almost done here. Housing mediation, we put at 21,000 rather than 31, since we didn't need to spend that many mediator hours this year, but we kept everything else the same, which is the planned peer-to-peer outreach program to increase the utilization of the program, which is in this 10,000. Safety stations, yep, we increased the budget to the 72,000 mark, and we're in discussions right now with UCPD on how to adjust the hours and increase the number of stations. So that's the number we're going to work with. We don't know exactly what it'll cost, and I did some back of the napkin math, but that's what we're working with them right now. Investigator staying the same, 152,000. Parking also staying the same, but adding the STEP grant, which is great. But we removed the parking alternatives money because that's in the STEP grant now. Public Works graffiti abatement, Ivy Beautiful, we gave it a bump to 100,000 to allow for additional hours and employees to complete the work associated with the program. Infrastructure, we put 0, so we wanted to note this one. We just said that there's already all this funding in the accumulated capital reserve to do a large infrastructure project like lighting improvement, so we didn't need to put it in the regular operating budget. Public art, 5,000, kept the same. In community planning, which is have been our discussions about getting more education and information on the master plan, staying at 30,000. So without an advertising budget, since we combined all the advertising budgets of the district into one for the new engagement director to utilize as needed. So that's the budget. It's pretty simple because we're not fully finished with it, but this is the great result that I think our finance committee has worked on over the last 3 to 4 months. I'll just show you here. One last thing is we haven't allocated 23,000 yet, but that's because the revenue growth came in after our last finance committee meeting. So that's just in now, but that's just something for the board to know. Is the ending fund balance for next year will be projected at $1.5 million.
Excellent. Thank you for that presentation, Jonathan. Are there any questions from board members on the preliminary budget? Director Freeman, go ahead.
Are we required to allocate in some way, even if it's simply to reserves, all of the revenue that we believe that we're going to be taking in, or are we allowed to just have a line item that's just like net increase of balance 23,000?
Yeah, we've had the net in the past. So we had like a net of 7,000 last year.
I didn't think of the question last year, but the fact that we did it last year, I'm still curious about my question. Like, Ross's opinion or Bob?
Yeah, it's kind of a combination of financial or accounting component, and I think Bob has addressed the financial aspect of it before. From the legal standpoint, there are designated reserves and rules that apply to reserves or local agents, what are called local agency investment funds, and standards for investing. But as far as the law is concerned, if you don't have unallocated funds, it's in the general fund and it's awaiting for assigning to a category as the need may arise. Basically, it's like an undesignated reserve. But I'd leave it to Bob for the financial angle.
Yeah, and we're not finished yet, so it's the preliminary budget. So we're going to approve the final budget possibly without the net financial impact, or possibly with one. So I guess we're not done with our work yet to say what that's going to be.
And Jay, just from my perspective, you can eat, the budget should be balanced. The sources should equal the uses. And if one of the uses is to undesignated fund balance, as our attorney said in his last comment, it's undesignated. I think that's okay and it's legal. But we're showing a surplus, and then somebody says, well, don't you have to do something with that? Yeah, it's undesignated. We can do something with it later in the budget. We can adjust the budget. I kind of look at the budgets nowadays as they're just an ongoing pattern of expenditures that, you're supposed to appropriate, your budget so that you have legal authority for expenditures. And I think we're doing a pretty good job of that.
Thank you for those comments, Director Freeman and Director Geis. Are there any other questions or comments from board members? Director Bertrand, go ahead.
Thanks. So I'd like to thank staff for just a great process thus far. Jonathan, Deborah, thank you so much. We've had great public participation through our budget survey. We also had a good budget town hall. And when we look at this budget in this preliminary form for this next fiscal year, I really think it speaks to our values that we share as a board in this community. We're continuing to invest in our public safety programs. We are taking a number of our pilot programs to the next level in the areas of cleaning up our community and serving our homeless neighbors through Ivy Beautiful, as well as partnering with the Compost Collective, just to name a few areas of our budget that we're really seeing improvement. And throughout the process, we've really made sure that we're sticking to our mandate, that we are being as efficient as possible, recognizing that we want to do as much as we can, but we have limited resources. So that's really been what's guided our process thus far. But overall, it's been really great. So I just want to thank staff for that. In addition to the changes that Jonathan highlighted, one item that we discussed at our last Finance Committee meeting that we will probably bring recommendations to the board on is the issue of director compensation. And we actually also got a public comment email on this issue. And we were discussing at the Finance Committee just the importance of making sure that we have a board that sticks around for as long as possible, and that we're attracting high quality applicants and recognizing just how difficult it can be, especially for young people to serve, for folks from disenfranchised communities. And the California Government Code allows for directors to be compensated for up to 6 days of service per month. And we just want to make sure that when directors are working above the 2 board meetings, that there is an opportunity for compensation when they are doing that extra work. And that's obviously not something that we have in today's numbers, but that is something that we are discussing as a committee as just one way of how we can make sure that serving on this board is accessible to people. And it's obviously not a big jump in pay for the amount of work that goes into this. No matter what, this has to be a labor of love and something that you're really passionate about. But if it can make it a little bit easier for folks to serve and to be attracted to these positions and to not go into financial trouble as a result of taking on all this extra work, that is something that's meaningful to us.
Thank you for those comments, Director Bertrand. I will share that I think that this has been is going to end up being one of our best budgets that we've approved to this date, because it makes significant investments in these programs that are having significant impact in our community, from the Compost Collective to the I Love Vista Beautiful program. And we got such great feedback from the survey and the town hall that we performed as part of this process. I know in going through and doing my own analysis of all of the different comments that were submitted, and there were many, I think around 120 of them. The biggest theme that I saw this year was the need for more investments in things that keep our community clean. And especially as we've just gone through move out season, I know that's front and center on many of our minds right now. And this budget really has a significant investment in that, the I Love Vista Beautiful program. And I think that that is very significant. I also want to agree with Director Bertrand's comments about compensation as well. I think we need to be as competitive as possible, just the same way that we've been with our hiring that we've been doing recently, in order to do our best to attract a board that is invested and that can stick around, because we're doing such important work right now. Additionally, I'm very excited that this budget has a significant increase for our safety station program in order to open up additional stations, which is another thing that was brought up by many commenters on our survey about the desire for those stations to be more numbered and more visible. And I know that Jonathan and I had a great meeting with UCPD Lieutenant Matt Bly last week, where we talked a little bit about how we might do that, but the investment comes right now during budget time. And so I'm very thankful to staff for putting all of this together, and the report that really encapsulates all the numerous programs that we have. I think it's very helpful for the public, and I'm supportive of this budget in its current form. And I know that we will have revisions that do come back once we approve the final budget in August. But I think that this is a really good template moving forward. Any other comments on the budget from directors? Not seeing any comments from directors, I'll open it up to members of the public. Any members of the public have comments on the preliminary budget? All right, seeing none, I'll close public comment and bring it back to the board for any comments from the board in closing. Not seeing any, I would entertain a motion. Director Bertrand.
I move approval of the 2021-2022 preliminary budget.
Made by Bertrand, seconded by Flaherty. Any other public or board comment for the good of the order? All right, seeing none, we'll go to a vote.
Okay. Director Brandt?
Yes.
Flaherty?
Yes.
Deschler?
Yes.
Bertrand?
Yes.
Geis?
Yes.
Aguilar?
Yes.
Freeman?
Yes.
All right, motion passes unanimously. We look forward to the public's continued participation in this budget process, and we'll be back here in August with a final budget. Next, we're going to move to item 4.7, which is the interpersonal violence investigator contract extension with UCPD.
Great, thank you. I think this one is relatively simple. It's just a one-year contract extension for the interpersonal violence investigator. Simple one page to do so, and we're still maintaining what was in the last contract amendment, the first amendment, which was the specific metrics and goals for outreach and and reporting. So those are still here, but this amendment is just to extend for another year, like we had discussed at our last meeting.
Excellent. Any questions or comments from board members? All right. Not seeing any. I would entertain a motion if anyone has one. Director Flaherty.
I move to approve the contract extension for 2021-2022 interpersonal violence investigator program with UCPD.
I'll second.
Made by Flaherty, seconded by Geis. I want to open up public comment. Any members of the public have comments on this program? All right, not seeing any, I'll close public comment and bring it back to the board and just say, I think we were all here and got a great presentation a couple of weeks ago from the UCPD interpersonal violence investigator team, and got to hear from Detective Avila. I just continue to be very impressed by her work, her care, her commitment to survivors. And I was, really happy to hear that, despite the challenging year and the many challenges that COVID has brought, she was still able to stay in touch and connect with survivors in our community in a really important way, providing services even to residents of our community that were sort of lost in the COVID diaspora that we had, where so many folks had to go back home and live at their parents' houses. And I think that's just such a testament to the great work that they're doing. So I'm very excited to support this. Any other comments from board members? All right, we'll move it to a vote.
Great. Director Brandt?
Yes.
Director Flaherty?
Yes.
Director Deschler?
Yes.
Director Bertrand?
Yes.
Director Geis?
Yes.
Director Aguilar?
Yes.
Director Freeman?
Yes.
All right, motion passes. We'll move to our next item, which is the contract extension for 2021-2022 for our rental housing mediator.
Great. Yes, same deal with this, except this is a First Amendment. I'll pull it up. Having some issue. Yeah. So this is just a First Amendment. Another year with Sarah McNeil, who's done a fabulous job.
Excellent. Do any directors have questions? Okay, not seeing any. Any members of the public have questions? Or I do see a hand actually. Go ahead, Director Bertrand.
Yes, thank you. So definitely supportive of this. I know that our Assistant General Manager, Deborah Anderson, was working on bringing back like a evaluation and recommendations on this last year. Do we have any data that's ready at this point on program utilization?
Deborah's been out sick this month, so I don't have anything prepared. I know that off the top of my head, it's around, it's almost around the same as last year. I think there were it was a little more, maybe 10 to 15 mediations, just like before.
Got it. That's helpful to know. Thank you.
Any other questions from board members? All right, I'll open it up to the public. Any comments on the mediation program from members of the public? All right, not seeing any, I'll bring it back to the board. I think that this is a great extension. Been impressed with the services that Mr. McNeil provides, and always just want to use the opportunity to educate the public and let folks know that these services where whether it's roommates, housemates, having disagreements among one another, or having disagreements with their landlord or the owner of the property. This is a really valuable program where you're able to receive mediation by a trained housing lawyer, a trained mediator, to help try and resolve these issues. And I just really encourage and challenge us all to continue to spread the word about that, because the program is very valuable, but also I think in many ways underutilized by the community and not as known as some of our other programs. So I'm very supportive of this extension and look forward to hearing more about the analysis once we get Deborah back.
Thank you. We do have the plan next year to do a door-to-door promotion and peer-to-peer outreach directly on using the program. So that's the idea, that we did a mailer to every household in English and Spanish. It didn't seem to work, but we're hoping that peer-to-peer education and communication will work actually in getting the program to be utilized more.
Yes, thank you for sharing that, Jonathan. Any other questions or comments from directors? All right, so I think we're going to move to a vote then.
Did we have a motion?
Is there a motion made? Am I getting ahead of myself?
Okay.
I would welcome a motion.
I'll make a motion. I'll move the approval of the rental housing mediator contract for 2021 to 2022.
Made by Deshler. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Geis. Any other public comment? Okay, we'll move to a vote now.
Great. Director Brandt,
Yes.
Director Flaherty,
Yes.
Director Deshler,
Yes.
Director Bertrand,
Yes.
Geis,
Yes.
Aguilar,
Yes.
Freeman.
Yes.
All right, motion passes and contract is approval is granted. Next, we're going to move to district COVID-19 response, and I'll turn it over to Jonathan to talk about anything on this item.
Yeah, we've got the community garden next.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, I did indeed miss that. Okay, we'll move to the Isla Vista Community Garden Grant Agreement.
Great. This is another one that's the same as these. We're just extending by a year, and we can do these on consent in the future if that's the preference, but this is just another one. Same grant agreement we use, and the scrolling down to their proposal that they had put into our, sorry, my computer's not loading it, but it was a $19,000 proposal that they had put into their grant proposal last time. Oh, here it is. Services to be provided. It did load. So this is what they had proposed that they wanted to get a grant for, and the narrative that they provided, which is more than the before. So this is better. This grant agreement is getting better because it's got narrative of goals and plans for the funding. So I'm recommending approval.
Excellent. Any questions or comments from members of the board? I will just say, so at one of our previous hearings last month, we had a presentation from the community garden, and I was just really impressed by everything that they've been able to do over this last year, very challenging year, and very excited for all the work that they're going to be putting in moving forward, and continue to really appreciate this program. Really taking a corner in our community that in many ways didn't always look so good, was kind of rundown area of the community, and building it into something that is so beautiful and serves such a great purpose, having fruits and vegetables there that anyone can access. Director Deshler.
I have something kind of nitpicky, so I'll just mention it. So I don't, I noticed that the format of some of the other items that we've approved look one way, and then this looks another way. And I realize this is a grant agreement, and the other things that we have approved have been amendments. But I think I prefer if things look the same in terms of the font. And I also think if we're doing a grant agreement and it's IVCSD, that it should have our logo on it and that kind of information. So that's all. That's my nitpicky item.
That's good input.
Thank you for that, Director Deschler. Director Freeman.
Was the wording on this, calling it the only thing I'm calling it a grant, was that run by either the people at the university that we hand the money back through, or the people at the, like Katie, doing the community garden stuff? Because I remember there being some really weird issue with relation to us calling money a grant that we handed back to the university. And I'm trying to remember what it is. And the other thing that I can't quite remember is if it had to do with specifically this program, or if it was when we had money from the university that we handed back as opposed to money from our other funds.
Yeah, no, Jay, you're right. It was this program when we were first getting it set up. We were gonna do the agreement with UCSB, the Edible Campus program, but we couldn't for a few reasons because of what you're describing. And I don't remember the exact details of how UCSB gets, not taxes, but has fees on grants and things like that. So
that's what it was. There's a mechanism by which when you have grants that are associated with programs, that some amount of it gets diverted through into the UCSB's general grant mechanism.
Yes, so that's where we were at, and then we just switched the grant to being the Methodist Church.
Okay.
That they can accept their nonprofits, that they can accept the grant. But yeah, we can definitely move to a standard format. We've used 3 different agreement types in the past. We have an MOU that UCPD only likes to use and UCSB likes to use with us. We have, for those 2 programs, we have the professional services agreement, which is like the vast majority of our agreements. And then we have this grant agreement, which we've used for the Ivy Youth Projects Community Center grant, and then this one in the past. But this is definitely one that can become a professional services agreement. But yeah, we'll need to work it out with the Methodist Church for next year, and we can get them on that page.
Thank you for that question, Director Freeman. Any other questions from board members? Okay, any comments from members of the public? I see a hand from Jeff Walsh. Go ahead.
Hi, everyone. And I'm going to beg your indulgence just for a minute or two. I don't, as you well know, I do not regularly attend your meetings, so I'm not up on all the stuff. And I know you're going to go, oh my God, we've got to educate this guy about the whole history of the CSD. No, I'm not asking for that, but I am asking a little bit about the community garden project that you're talking about. Where specifically is this on property other than that owned by the Park District?
Yes, so this is a community garden that is at the Methodist community, or the Methodist Church, United Methodist Church, on the corner of Sueño and Camino del Sur.
Well, they used to have a whole lot of community gardens there, and they evicted all the community gardens so they could build all those big apartment buildings that they have there now. And I just drove by there last weekend, and where are the community gardens? I mean, the church is on the corner and the apartments line Camino del Sur. Like, where are the gardens? Are they in the back?
The gardens are in the front around the church. So they face Sueño and they face Camino del Sur.
Okay, so let me understand, and I'm almost finished. I beg your indulgence a little bit more. So the Community Services District is granting some $19,000 or something to the Methodist Church to conduct this community garden. And then who gets the fruits and vegetables?
So the fruits and vegetables are open to anyone in the public. There's no requirements or anything that restricts who can access them. And the garden is maintained by a number of employees of the sustainability program that manage the garden. And Jonathan, feel free to add anything that I missed in that.
Yeah, no, that's pretty much it. Our grant funds the community engagement to get people in the neighborhood involved in the garden. That was what originally our grant was. And now we also, part of it is for the management of the garden because there had been funding that was temporary at one time. So, and we had originally funded the startup cost of the equipment as part of this grant. So it's changed over the years, but right now it's on garden management and community engagement with some supplies.
Okay, well, I have more questions, but I'm not going to take any more of your time now. I will investigate and probably bug some of you privately. Thank you very much.
Absolutely, please do. Always happy to talk about this. Any other comments from members of the public? Okay, we'll bring it back to the board, and if there's no other discussion, I'll entertain a motion. Director Bertrand?
Yes, I'll move approval of the grant agreement.
You have a motion. Is there a second?
I will second.
Made by Bertrand, seconded by Freeman. Any other discussion? All right, we'll move to a vote.
Director Brandt?
Yes.
Flaherty?
Yes.
Kessler?
Yes.
Bertrand?
Yes.
Geis?
Yes.
Aguilar?
Yes.
Freeman?
Yes.
All right, motion passes. Now we're going to move to our last item on the action agenda, which is the district COVID-19 response.
Great. The main point to bring up today is that Ross was really kind to send me his law firm's memo on the new changes for COVID-19 in the workplace, and we are going to update our COVID-19 prevention program in line with that. So that's our update on COVID-19.
Excellent. I'm glad to hear that. And can you remind our board and members of the public what our target dates are in terms of these board meetings going back to a physical location?
Yeah, right. We're looking at August as being the first meeting in August as our target date to get back to in person. And that's obviously we got to see what happens with our building and our space, but we're targeting August. It's August 10th is the first meeting of August. So that's the day we should hopefully be back to a level of in person.
Excellent. That's great to hear. And I'll share, I think I mentioned this before, but Director Freeman and I tested out a piece of technology that is a camera that integrates with Zoom that will help to make our meetings hybrid so that members of the public may call in and join and observe the meetings on Zoom continually going forward, even if the board meeting is physically in person and there are members of the public and directors in a location. And I have to say that it worked really well, and I'm very excited for what that means just to help broaden participation moving forward and keep the good things about Zoom that we have going. Any other questions or comments on this item from the board? Any comments from members of the public? All right, seeing none, we will move through to the next item, which is reports from members of the board. Any board members have reports they'd like to give? All right, seeing none, any reports from ad hoc or standing committees? I'll say for Finance Committee, we just went over everything that we've been working on over the last couple of weeks. So that was our report there. All right, seeing no reports, report from District Council.
Thank you, President Brandt. I've been keeping the board updated on the return to normal in-person meetings. You've already given an update on that. The other issue we continue to track are whether there are any updates from the legislature and whether they're making any of the temporary changes under the governor's executive orders for remote participation and observation of meetings, both by elected and appointed officials, as well as members of the public. We're still waiting on additional movement. Bills are in committees. Nothing has been finalized. Nothing has been sent to the governor's office as of yet. So at the end of September, come September 30th, unless something happens in the meantime, the old rules under the Brown Act as the rules as written will snap back into place. And there are a number of requirements that have to be observed for remote participation in meetings by elected officials. The last item is that the governor has on his desk a bill that would appropriate money specifically for special districts to receive some COVID relief. So it does appear that there is going to be some type of an account set aside specifically to assist local districts, special districts with additional expenses or loss of revenues that they incurred as a result of responding to COVID. It covers a variety of different expenses, but for example, some legal fees are covered by that. And anticipation of this becoming reality at some point, whenever my office has done anything related to COVID, we've been marking our billing entries with COVID-19 to make it easy to pull out, to be able to put into a package for some reimbursement from an account like what has been passed by the legislature and waiting for the governor. So it's good news for special districts to receive some support. It's been a hard slog for the Special Districts Association, and they've done a good job in helping to get through some of the COVID relief from the state, so we don't have to go through the approval and reimbursement process through the county. It's going to be a direct program with its own requirements and specifically set aside for special districts. So that's a good development. Just waiting for the governor to sign it. All expectations are that it should be signed without any issue or concern. And unless there are any questions, that concludes my update.
Excellent. Thank you for the report, Council. Any questions from board members? All right, not seeing any. Again, that's great news. Thank you for sharing. Next, we're going to go to report from General Manager.
Great. So here's our report for today. First up, the Compost Collective. I emailed you all, but we've hired our new program manager and she starts work on July 6th. So really excited to get that program elevated and operated in a better manner. Ivy Beautiful, I'm working with the CEO of United Way to come up with the next iteration of the budget and the contract. So that's we're meeting again on Monday and hope to get that for the July 13th meeting. Just for your information, the last 2 weeks, there were 31 requests opened and 15 closed. Safety stations, we already mentioned that we've met with them to start figuring out the plan, and we're scouting out locations and see what can work in early July. Community room, we had an issue where we had to change all the lockbox codes. I'm not sure if I let you know about that last meeting, but just letting you know again, we had a issue. Nothing was broken into, nothing was stolen, but we decided that it was time to change all the lockbox codes at the building that we control. So we did that. Just in a reminder too, the community room still being used as the coordinated entry office and Ivy Beautiful kind of office. And, we'll transition away as soon as we're able. Another problem at the building that we had to report in to the county was electrical wiring issues exposed outside that were identified by IVRPD during the People's Park activities. So they let us know about that and hopefully getting that fixed, but it's just wanted to point out another facility issue. library. So we got some more contact from the library, trying to figure out a final schedule. Right now, they're proposing 2:30 to 7 p.m. for 3 days a week. So we can let me know your thoughts on if that should be every day or every other day. But it's 2:30 to 7 is a new proposal for 3 days a week. So I already gave the report on in-person board meetings. STEP grant, we'll have our first meeting in a couple weeks, and everyone's invited to observe. Next up is the community engagement director. We have our committee interviews tomorrow. I already interviewed 16 people since yesterday, good candidates, and we advanced 5 to the final interview tomorrow. So we're excited to meet them and make a selection later this week. Public Records Act, we got another Public Records Act request, which was for the grant application for the Methodist Church for the community garden. So I'll send the last report that they submitted to us. And a couple general things. I'd let you know things are slow right now since it's a one person team for the most part. Got word from Lori Goodman that the summer program got 39 students. So they're saying it's going to cost 11,700 instead of the 10,000, but they understand that we voted for 10,000. But they did exceed their goal of Isla Vista students. And then I just want to give another push to everybody to send me your ethics certification. Catherine did that, sent it to me today, and I do need to turn those into the county actually. So please send them to me if you haven't done them, and it's only 2 hours if you have not. So please get that done.
Also, your harassment avoidance training. That's also every 2 years.
Yes, send me your certificates for both of those. And there's free options, and CSDA has options. So you can let me know if you have trouble getting to them, and I'll help. So yeah,
could you repeat that? I have ethics, and then Ross said something under his breath that I did not hear.
Sorry, it wasn't under my breath. It was over my fan that's blowing, because it's been in the hundreds in my house. Every 2 years and within certain, I think it's 6 months within taking office, elected officials have to take 2 hours of harassment avoidance training. I just delivered that training to one of my clients last Thursday.
Yeah.
Hey, Jonathan.
Yes.
Could you just on the ethics, what's the source that we can get to take that?
Yeah, the FPPC has a free one. The
Okay, I remember that. Okay.
Yeah.
And then how about the source for the harassment training?
So the CSDA has some options, and they told me that they're on their website right now when I met with their field rep last week. But if you don't see them, let me know and I'll make sure to get them to you.
Yeah, I've tried to access that CSDA website, and it seems like I need a password or something, or
yeah, I can send you your password or reset.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Excellent. Any other questions from the board for general manager's report? Director Deschler, go ahead.
I just wanted to ask Jonathan, given that you are short-staffed, is there anything that, I guess this could be a phone call. Oh, well, I've already started. Is there anything that coming up that maybe should not be on the agenda because you don't have the staff to do it?
I mean, I've already pushed off the mediations annual report, so that's going to be, whenever that's coming back. The planning firm's research, I got the 50% of that from the interns, but I haven't had a chance to dig into it myself, so that's another one. But it's half done, so it's almost there. That's the two that come to mind, but overall, I've been keeping the calendar going for the most part, so it's been okay right now. But yeah, the mediation and the planning are the ones that have been the victims so far. And then at the next meeting, I'll tell you what we've got is we're going to do our tax collection resolution like we always love to do for the Goleta West Sanitary District. Hopefully we'll have our updated lease facility use agreement, with STESA for the Survivor Resource Center. And then the next proposal from Ivy Beautiful and a draft scope of work for the STEP grant. So the STEP grant's really what I'm going to focus on because it's starting to be more timely to get it done in the next couple of weeks, along with our year-end accounting and the new hires.
And then, hey, Jonathan, are you able to adequately do the onboarding of the new employees? And have we been successful yet in, getting a new 457 plan and the new health insurance, or is that impacted?
No, the health insurance is on its way to starting on August 1st, like we had said. So all the paperwork is with GSRMA. The 457, though, we're lagging there. So we have all the options ready, but I think Deborah had gone out right as those were prepared and ready to discuss with you guys. So that's the only one where it's again 75% done but not done.
Okay.
Got it. Thanks for those questions. And I've got one quick question for District Council, actually, which is when we do like the tax collection resolutions, do we also, as part of our budget, need to set like the GAN spending limit? Are we subject to that?
Yes, and Jonathan has a draft or a template resolution to use for that. It's just since the appropriation limit.
Got it. Okay. Thank you for sharing that.
Yep.
I see a hand from a member of the public, so I want to open up public comment. And I think, Jeff, you had your hand raised earlier, so go ahead as well.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's part of the way you do the agenda. You don't allow the members of the public to ask questions of the district council, but I had one. Mr. Trindle, when you were mentioning you're waiting to see what the California state legislature does with respect to the Brown Act and the attendance at public meetings by elected officials. Is there any I was really excited to hear that you guys may go hybrid, because then this has been so much fun tonight. Spending 3.5 hours with you guys. It's just been a blast. It's like Halloween in the old days. And I live 100 miles away, so I may want to return, and hybrid would make it work for me. Is there a possibility that there would be any impact on members of the public attending remotely? I mean, I know you can't predict the future and you don't know, but.
Well, IVCSD is going to implement a hybrid option for members of the public to continue to attend remotely. What the regulations or the Brown Act requirements are, they focus on the board participating remotely.
Right, so there won't be any impact on members of the public attendance remotely.
No, there was a bill that would have required all special districts, regardless of size, to provide a remote participation and observation option for the public. That was amended. And currently that's the bill that's farthest along in the legislative process. That was amended so that it's not required unless the district is a certain population or customer size that is well beyond IVCSD's population. So It's not mandatory for this district, but the district's going to go ahead and offer that anyway.
Thank you very much for your response. And since I have the floor for a minute, I just want to thank all of you for your service to the community. And I mean that sincerely. Thank you.
Thank you for your questions and comments, Jeff. Always great to see you here. And I'm glad we can see more of you with hybrid. I see a hand from Director Freeman. Go ahead.
I have a clarifying question on Jonathan's report. You said that the library had provided somewhat specific hours. I'm curious, did you ask them about the flexibility of hours in the future, and what was their response to that?
Yeah, they had, the response has changed from the first time I asked. So I had first asked, are these hours going to be for forever or for a while? And they said, whatever days and times I choose now will be the times. But now they're saying that, we're only picking for July and August, and then, Saturday will be available in the fall potentially. So this is now just the summer hours. So that's a good catch. That was not the case when, first asked, but now it is.
Yes, I encourage all directors to, if you have input on the hours, to get in touch with Jonathan. I've appreciated the updates he's been sending me when communicating with the library system, just because, even thinking all the way back to when the Goleta City Council, directed them to go this direction. There's a certain, we talked about, there's a certain minimum level of service that they set at 15 hours a week in our facilities. So I'm hoping we can stick to that, and I'm hoping we can find something that's consistent across multiple days. Maybe, my goal would be something like, the afternoons and evenings of each weekday, or maybe Monday through Thursday. So that's my 2 cents on that, without getting too far off agenda. I saw a question from Bob. Go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, I kind of missed it. I know you guys were talking a little bit about the GAN limit. Ross, could I've dealt with the GAN limit for a long time, and I have been a consultant to a couple of districts that have wrestled with their GAN limits over the last, 10 years. And then I got a recent inquiry by a city in Santa Barbara County who's also struggling with their GAN limit and is going to have to return to get probably a vote of the people to, have an override of the GAN limit. Are we going to get in I guess we'll have to do the annual GAN limit reports where your revenue can only grow by, inflation and population. And so I'm trying to figure out how we're establishing this GAN limit. Is it going to be sufficient, or is it going to have a baseline that we're going to get in trouble right away?
No, the compliance, first off, the GAN limit is really a transparency tool. And what it's designed to do is to demonstrate how much money the public agency is bringing in and how much it's appropriating for services. And if the allocation ends up being more than the money spent, then that money is subject to being redistributed back to the people through whatever mechanism it is collected. In this case, it would be a refund on the utilities for IVCSD. So it lets people know how much money is coming in, where it's being appropriated, and if it ends up being more, then it goes back to the people who funded it in the first place. The GAN limit compliance has not been a problem for IVCSD. The way that it was calculated initially, it was very clear. It was very easy calculation to do. I mean, Jonathan did the actual calculation for the first couple of times, and the formula, it's laid out in the statute. And I don't know, Jonathan, if you are able to speak to that now, or if we can put it on for a future meeting, which is, I think, what I would suggest, if there's additional conversation and questions about that. But I don't believe that there's going to be any calculation problem for IVCSD, Bob. Our finances are just not complicated enough, really, because the revenue is from one source only, and we don't really have any complicated compliance issues for where the money ends up being programmed.
I just wonder, I don't remember us as a board ever approving our appropriation limit, nor have I seen one on an annual basis. And so, the State Department of Finance puts out reports every year, and because it's in the state constitution, people got to keep calculating these GAN limits, and it involves voter overrides and stuff. So I don't know how we calculated our initial GAN limit, and if our revenue growth is outpacing the increase in our limit, because the only way you can increase the limit is by population and CPI. Or there's other ways to do it too. It's a change in non-residential new construction, and there's some different things in the formula you can do with population. But did we do the calculations?
I want to say we did the calculations at some point, Bob, but to be honest, I don't know. And we're veering off into a pretty heady discussion on something that isn't on the agenda. So I think what I would suggest is there be a future agenda item where there can be further discussion and consideration on this to better educate the board and the public.
I agree. I think that sounds like a great idea, and transitions well into future meeting dates and agenda items. That will be a future agenda item. And our next meeting will take place on July 13th, 2021 at 6 p.m. right here on Zoom. Anything you want to share, Jonathan, in terms of future agenda items?
No, I think I already went over them just a little bit ago. So we have only one meeting in July, though, just that one. So if you have anything for July, get into that meeting.
Excellent. Great to hear. Any closing thoughts from the board? Otherwise, would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
Made by Freeman, seconded by Deschler. Any public comment for the good of the order? Last board discussion. All right, all those in, or let's go to a roll call vote.
Wait, Director Brandt?
Yes.
Flaherty?
Yes.
Deschler?
Yes.
Bertrand?
Yes.
Geis?
Yes.
Aguilar? Freeman?
Yes.
All right, motion passes. Thanks, everyone. We will see you on July 13th.
Hi.